Welcome to the Recast channel, an entire YouTube channel dedicated to the reimagination of classic films. These days, practically every movie under the sun is getting a sequel, prequel, spin-off, reboot, and remake. And I thought, why not have a little fun and talk about which movies I'd like to see remade, what script changes I'd like to see, and who I'd like to see cast in the remakes. We're kicking off the series with one of my favorite film noirs, Whirlpool. Now, before we get started, I want to warn you, there are spoilers ahead. So if you've never seen the movie before and don't want the plot ruined, I suggest you go watch the movie first and then come on back here. All right, without further delay, let's jump right in. Whirlpool centers on Ann Sutton, who suffers from kleptomania. After being caught shoplifting, a man named David Korvo comes to Ann's rescue and talks the shop owner out of pressing charges. Afterward, Ann learns that Korvo is a hypnotist, and he offers to treat Ann for her kleptomania. Ann is also married to successful psychoanalyst Dr. Bill Sutton. Bill is unaware of Ann's condition, and because she wants to keep it a secret from him, she agrees to be treated privately by Korvo. Yet Korvo is not some kind stranger. Instead, he uses his hypnosis abilities first as an attempt to seduce Ann and later to frame her for murder. When Ann is arrested and her kleptomania is revealed to her husband, it is then up to Bill to prove her innocence. Now, the bones of this story are great. There are moments in this film that are wildly entertaining. But to be completely honest, it's not an entirely excellent film. Unfortunately, so many well-built scenes end up getting clipped by social tropes and cliches of the era, keeping this film from becoming a major classic. Now, if this movie were to get remade, we could set it in modern times, but we also need to identify what exactly this film is about. Now, I've watched it several times. I believe the core themes are free will and self-empowerment. The main reason Ann suffers from kleptomania is because she feels that she is at the mercy of the men in her life. First her father, and then her husband. David Korvo sees many women clients, and the large reason why he becomes so influential over the women is because he offers them a false sense of empowerment. He uses metaphysics to make the women feel seen, and then of course he proceeds to manipulate them. So with that understanding as our center focus, let's break down how we can reshape and reorganize the scenes of the film. Whirlpool opens with Ann getting caught shoplifting at an upscale department store. The scene moves quickly, but there is suddenly heavy exposition that feels clunky and slows the pacing down. In the original, the shopgirl explains to the store owner that she saw Ann stealing. But what if instead of saying what happened, we see it happen? The film could open with a shot of Ann walking around the store, when she comes across a display of glittering jewelry. The shopgirl could approach Ann and offer to show her a few pieces. Another customer could call the shopgirl away, and that's when Ann could sneak one of the pieces of jewelry into her purse. The shopgirl, however, sees Ann do this through an angled mirror on the display case. In the original, Korvo briefly crosses paths with Ann as she is being escorted by store security, and then he magically comes to her rescue. In the remake, Korvo could be in the store shopping with a woman named Tina, a character we'll discuss further in a moment. Korvo could notice Ann walking around the store, take interest in her, and then watch her as she steals the piece of jewelry. The shop girl then speaks to store security, who would then stop Ann from leaving the store. That's when Korvo could step in and vouch for Ann. Rather than making it a bigger situation, Korvo is instead able to persuade security that it was an honest mistake, and they let Ann leave. The store scene closes with Korvo walking Ann out. But then, the film transitions to Ann arriving at home. We don't see how Korvo and Ann part ways. And the movie has Korvo call Ann later, inviting her to lunch. This order of events never made sense to me. There should be a parting scene before Ann goes home. So rather than have her meet up with Korvo later, when they are walking out of the store, Korvo could offer to buy her a coffee. Feeling like she owes him for vouching for her, Ann would accept his offer. Keeping with the original lunch scene, Ann worries Korvo is going to blackmail her, given that her husband is a prominent psychoanalyst. But Korvo reassures her that he won't tell anyone, and then he shares that he's a hypnotist. He then explains that he could tell Ann was a kleptomaniac, and he offers to treat her for this. That's how we'd learn about Ann's condition, as well as how Korvo is a hypnotist. He'd offer to see her as a client and give her his card. Ann, slightly offended yet relieved he isn't blackmailing her, would take his card and then leave. So let's take a pause here and consider who would be a good fit to play Ann Sutton and David Korvo. Ann Sutton is a woman whose life revolves around her husband, and her husband's reputation has taken precedence over her own mental health. She is meant to be an elegant yet timid woman who later demonstrates growth and independence. Ann is somewhat meek, but she must be a meek protagonist that the audience still roots for, rather than someone they pity or is annoyed by. There are many actresses that could move from weak to strong, but not many who equally possess a quiet, delicate elegance. My pick for Ann would be Halle Berry, because I believe she could pull off the necessary balance for this role. Berry can be soft-spoken, but also firm. She is also able to give these great facial expressions that help you both understand her fragility, but without causing her to appear like an outright victim. Think of Halle Berry in Gothica, that sort of strong but frightened, sweet but sad balance. I think that would be fitting for Ann Sutton. As for David Korvo, 2 casting options come to mind. It all just depends on which direction to take the character. The first is Kit Harington, who would create a dark and serious take on Korvo. Harington has a soft energy paired with a naturally sad boy face. No offense. And he would be good at acting harmless and sensitive to women. But with that seriousness, Harington could play a Korvo who flips quickly, becoming a much more terrifying antagonist. My second option is Daniel Kaluuya. With Kaluuya, we'd get a more playful and charismatic version of Korvo. A Korvo even the audience would be charmed by. Kaluuya's Korvo would delight in challenging Ann and mocking her husband's work. With Harington, we'd get the "but I'm a nice guy, why don't you like me" vibe. And with Kaluuya, we'd get the "I'm a badass, so it's no question that your wife would like me" vibe. I'd lean more towards Kaluuya for the part, because I think he could balance Halle Berry's role. Think of it like fire and water. He's fire, she's water. And I think Kaluuya's combination of sinister charisma would better fall in line with how the original Korvo was written. When Ann returns home, the film subtly sets up the Sutton marriage. The couple have a beautiful home, and it is clear their lives are structured around Bill's profession. His nameplate is on the front door, his office is in the house, and Ann must live her life essentially around her husband's schedule. Through this setup, we start to see why Ann feels pressured to hide her problem from her husband. It's all about keeping up appearances and saving face. Ann forgoes telling her husband about the shoplifting incident, and instead they talk about one of Bill's patients. Their conversation does well to demonstrate how much Bill's work means to him, and how he leans on Ann for support and comfort. This also further stresses the pressure Ann feels to be a grounded and stable wife for her husband. So when Bill declines to go with her to the symphony, we see how much more Ann's personal wants and desires are being denied. But their conversation also helps set up why Ann would be compelled to call Korvo about treating her kleptomania. She wants to be the perfect wife for her husband, and therefore decides to resolve her issue once and for all as discreetly as possible. What would need to be updated would be the information surrounding psychoanalysis as well as hypnosis. Rather than treating the 2 sciences as taboo gimmicks, it would be interesting to explore each with respect. By doing so, it would help build the power struggle, not only between the 2 studies, but also the metaphorical struggle between Ann's love for her husband and her growing interest in Korvo. Ann would call Korvo, but still be a bit hesitant about seeing him as a patient. In an attempt to reassure her, Korvo could offer to take her to a client's party, where she could have a first-hand testimonial from one of his patients. Feeling both pressure to overcome her kleptomania, but also starved for attention, agrees to his offer. So who could play Dr. William Bill Sutton? My choice is Oscar Isaac. He can play a cool, suave, level-headed husband who is very matter-of-fact. I feel his and Barry's performances would be complementary to each other. Isaac has also proven he is capable of playing a man obsessed with his work, and while charming, is neglectful of his loved ones, and he is able to do this in such a way that the audience still sympathizes with him, which will be needed as the film progresses. From there, the movie will progress onto the party scene at Tina's home. In the original film, this is the first time the audience is introduced to Tina. In the remake, we'd already get a preview of Tina at the department store. From that earlier scene, it would silently establish that Tina and Korvo have a close and trusting relationship, enough to go shopping together at least. This makes Tina the ideal character to naturally offer backstory to Korvo. Tina is meant to be a kooky, uber-rich older woman. For this role, I feel Andrea Martin would be a great choice. She's funny and clever, and I think she could easily play a gullible older woman who is into metaphysics. This scene would play out roughly the same as the original movie, with one major difference. Terry Randolph, a former patient of Korvo, is abruptly introduced late in the party scene. But in the remake, I'd say we have her enter earlier, when everyone is still chatting. Korvo would excuse himself to go speak with Terry, while Ann hangs back with Tina. Here, Tina would whisper to Ann about the relationship between Terry and Korvo, and how there might have been a possible love affair. We'd then cut to Terry and Korvo, with Terry asking him what kind of relationship he has with Ann. Terry would then hint at the money Korvo owes her, and tell him that she's actually a patient of Ann's husband now. This information would make Korvo slightly irritated, and he would excuse himself. Terry's character needs to be played by an actress who can be dramatic and fretful, and a little wackadoodle. The audience also doesn't necessarily root for Terry. Yes, she was manipulated by Korvo, but we will later come to find that in addition to blowing her daughter's trust fund on him, she is also still infatuated with him. I know my pick might be a bit controversial, but I would like to see Amber Heard in this role. I think she could pull off this gray area character. The audience would naturally recoil and struggle to sympathize with her, which is needed for Terry's character to work as a counter to Ann. During this party, we are also introduced to Korvo's protege, who apparently, before the party, fed Korvo information about her fiancé that Korvo then used to appear psychic. We'll keep this conversation in, because I believe his protege could be useful later in the film. We then move on to the hypnosis scene. When Ann complains of a headache and admits to be suffering from insomnia, Korvo offers to do a light hypnosis session on her to help her have better sleep. Yet Korvo also uses this opportunity to test how suggestible Ann is. Terry, like in the original, would burst into the room, see Korvo and Ann together, and then scuttle out. Ann and Terry would then speak privately. Because Terry is still emotionally entangled with Korvo, rather than outright warning Ann about Korvo as she does in the original film, and Ann jumping to Korvo's defense, which seems out of place, Terry would instead try to sniff out if Ann and Korvo were romantically involved. Terry would also mention to Ann that she's a client of Bill's, and then she would wonder out loud why a loving wife like Ann would be out with a man like Korvo. Ann would become defensive about her integrity, and the two women would break out into a minor catty argument that would get witnessed and broken up by Tina. After the argument, there could then be an added scene of Ann asking Korvo what his and Terry's relationship was. Korvo would simply say that Terry was a client who was obsessed with him, and that Ann should keep an eye on Terry around Bill. Ann would defend her husband and claim to completely trust him, but Korvo would challenge her by saying that if she completely trusted Bill, why was she hiding her kleptomania from him? This would cause Ann to pause, and to further diffuse the tension, Korvo would offer to solely treat Ann for her insomnia, to which Ann would answer that she would have to think about it. When she goes home, thanks to Korvo's earlier hypnosis session at the party, Ann is able to sleep through the night, and she calls Korvo the following morning, agreeing to start seeing him as a client. After the party, the B-plot is introduced. Korvo is on the phone with Terry, who is now threatening Korvo to give her back her money. This phone call comes across as a flimsy introduction to the B-plot, but if we were to already have Terry bring up the money earlier at the party, this phone call then strengthens that introduction. And the reason the B-plot needs to be strengthened is because it becomes the main reason why Korvo so aggressively pursues Ann. From there, Ann arrives at Korvo's apartment building, but refuses to go up to his apartment. They instead meet in the bar. When Korvo makes an open attempt to seduce Ann, she refuses him. And while she makes a phone call to Terry to apologize for her behavior at the party, Korvo steals Ann's scarf, an object we will later see Korvo use to further tie Ann to Terry's murder. What the original film lacks is the buildup of Korvo and Ann's relationship. There should be scenes of Ann getting progressively happier as her treatment with Korvo goes on. We need to see how Ann and Korvo are getting closer, and how to the outside observer, it might seem like they are becoming more than just a hypnotist and his client. There should also be scenes of Bill suddenly noticing Ann's improved mood, and his growing curiosity as to why that is. There should also be a scene where Terry runs into Ann as she's leaving Bill's office. In that scene, Terry could ask if Ann is still seeing Korvo, and if Bill knows about her hypnosis treatment. Naturally, Ann can become defensive, and they could argue loud enough that Bill steps out of his office and asks what's going on. The women play it off like nothing. This would then add to Bill's curiosity, as well as build up the tension between Ann and Terry. The film insinuates that at some point, Ann was hypnotized by Korvo to steal private recordings of Terry's therapy sessions with Bill. In these recordings, Terry confesses that she is scared of Korvo, that she blew her daughter's trust fund on him, and how he later beat her up and threatened her life. Obviously, Korvo wants these recordings because it incriminates him, but the recordings also act as a reason for Korvo to return to the scene of the crime. Once Ann steals the recordings, she is immediately caught in Terry's home and arrested for her murder. While the recordings help piece together how and why Terry was murdered, they do become a bit of a clunky device in the story. In modern therapy, it is the responsibility of the therapist to report if a client has experienced or inflicted violence. Had Terry confessed to Bill that Korvo beat her up, Bill would automatically have to report it, and there goes the rest of the movie. Also, it's a bit dumb for Korvo to instruct Ann to hide the recordings at Terry's house, where investigators would no doubt have searched the place from top to bottom for evidence. So really, I'd like to get rid of the recordings altogether. At the most, there could be an added scene of Ann, Korvo, and Tina out to lunch, where Terry tries to confront him. Korvo could pull Terry aside. Terry could then threaten that unless Korvo gives her back her money, she'll tell Bill about how Korvo beat her up. When Korvo returns to Tina and Ann could say something to console Korvo, but in such a way that Tina would misinterpret it as an Ann wanting to harm Terry on behalf of Korvo. From there, Ann could still be hypnotized to show up at the scene of the crime. And what further ties her to the murder is the murder weapon being the scarf Korvo stole from Ann, wrapped around Terry's neck. When Bill arrives at the police station, Lieutenant Colton questions him on just how long Ann and Korvo's relationship had been going on. Of course, Bill doesn't know anything about Ann's relationship with Korvo, so Lieutenant Colton informs him on how Ann had been seeing Korvo for several months, causing Bill to become nervous and suspicious. Bill later questions Ann about her involvement with Terry and Korvo. Ann claims she only saw Korvo for sleep treatment. When Bill questions if Ann might have been romantically involved with Korvo, Ann denies this, and is hurt that Bill would ever question her. But Bill continues to be suspicious. Instead of Korvo's alibi being that he was having surgery, this is where his protege from the party could come in handy. Since it is apparent that the two of them have worked together in the past to somewhat dupe the protege's fiancé, she could be someone who later vouches for Korvo's whereabouts on the night of Terry's murder. And rather than questioning Korvo in a hospital bed, Bill could confront him in his apartment. Like in the original, Korvo could paint a picture of his relationship with Ann in a way that makes Bill think there was an affair, and that Ann killed Terry out of jealousy. Bill would accuse Korvo of lying, and claim he knows his wife enough that she would never betray him. Then Korvo would ask Bill if he was aware of Ann's kleptomania. Bill, of course, would be unaware of Ann's condition, and once more have yet another seed of doubt planted in his mind. After questioning Korvo, Bill returns to the police station, where he once more berates Ann with questions about her relationship with Korvo. When Ann continues to deny any wrongdoing, Bill finally admits that he knows about her kleptomania, which causes Ann to snap and reveal the pressure she has felt being Bill's perfect wife. This time, Ann will say whether she did or didn't sleep with Korvo, she liked him because he made her feel accepted and empowered for the first time in her life. From here forward, the remake would play out nearly identical to the original. Ann would be taken back to the scene of the crime to see if she can remember what happened the night Terry was murdered. As Ann walks through Terry's home, a flashback can be cut in to show how Terry was home alone when Korvo arrived and killed her, and how Ann came into Terry's house, setting off the alarm, and was later found there by the police. Since the recordings would no longer be included in the remake, Korvo would need a new reason for showing up at the crime scene. One option could be that after being questioned by Bill, Korvo became nervous and followed them to ensure that Ann wouldn't reveal anything about him. And since Korvo wouldn't have had surgery as an alibi, he wouldn't be bleeding to death from his surgical incision. Instead, Korvo and Bill could get into a fistfight. In the original movie, Ann stands around in these final scenes looking like a terrified rabbit. She is a passive character, but in the remake, Ann could become an active participant who jumps in to save her husband by whacking Korvo on the head, causing him to go unconscious. This is where the original movie ends, but I think it would be interesting for the remake to end on a cliffhanger. We flash forward a year. Ann and Bill are still married, and they're working on their relationship. Ann is seeing a new therapist to help her with her kleptomania, and Bill has cut back on work to spend more time with Ann. All seems right with the couple. But then the phone rings. Ann answers it, and we can hear that it's Korvo on the other end. Ann is compelled to stay on the phone with him, but instead the music swells, and we don't hear what Korvo tells her. Then as Ann hangs up, the movie starts to close. Yet we get the sense that that won't be the last time Ann speaks with Korvo. So there you have it, my reimagining of Whirlpool. I'd love to know your thoughts. Who would you recast in the film? What changes would you want to see? Let me know in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe to catch future episodes of the Recast. Until next time.